Welcome to Prime Life. We call it Retirement 2.0. Leave each episode with tips and new ideas to help you navigate retirement in our new age. It's your time. Make it count.
This podcast is for educational purposes only. It is not intended as medical, investment, or financial advice. We do not sponsor or endorse any of the individuals, companies, products, or services featured on this podcast. Any statements or opinions expressed are of the individual who makes them. We hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Prime Life Podcast. This is Joseph Katz, and I'm here again with my good friend, Mary. Mary, how's it going?
It's going great. I'm very excited to be here. So always enjoy our time together, Joseph, and I always enjoy our time with the guests that we have on Prime Life Podcast.
Excellent. I know today's topic may not seem like a cheery one, but I think we'll still try to have some fun and educate our listeners. So why don't we get started with introducing who our guest is?
Absolutely. That sounds great. Thanks, Joseph. So today we have Randi Goldstein. She's the Vice President of Funeral Director for Goldstein's Rosenberg's Funeral Home. Randi, welcome to Prime Life. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your business.
Well, hi, Mary. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. About myself, I am a third-generation funeral director on my side of the family. I've been licensed funeral director for way more many years than I want to admit. Based out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. As I said, I'm a funeral director. I basically deal with people when they lose a loved one, and we make the arrangements. We coordinate everything for them. We also do a lot what we call pre-arrangements, which is before someone dies, we help you. My family started this business back in the 1940s. We merged with another funeral home, hence Rosenberg, that had been around in the 1800s, late 1800s. So we have over 140 years of experience in doing this. Right now, like I said, it's third and fourth generation running the business. So I have many partners, and I would not be able to do this alone without my partners. I also, besides being a funeral director and, and vice president of the company, one of many vice presidents, I also am the head of our marketing and PR and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different hats I wear.
Wow, so a lot going on there, Randi. So welcome to the show. I'd love to jump into the planning idea. So early in my career, I sold insurance, and no one ever wants to talk about death, right? It's one of those topics. Everyone's going to live forever until they don't. So let's start with what people should be thinking about as it relates to planning, specifically in this case, funerals and end of life arrangements.
I guess the first and foremost is, are you planning for yourselves or are you planning for a loved one? And whichever way you're going, the one thing you really need to decide is your disposition. And by that, I mean whether you're going to be a traditional burial or whether you're going to do the cremation option. Once you figure that out, your next step is honestly the hardest step, picking up the phone and making that call to us and asking us what's next, because that's the only thing the public knows is I have to call a funeral home. They have no idea what it entails, and it entails a lot. It's a lot of coordinating and a lot of information we gather, and we literally walk you through planning your loved ones or yourself, depending on who the person is, your funeral or their funeral.
So thank you for sharing that. And I agree. I think the hesitation is picking up the phone. And I think, like Joseph said, we all think we're going to live forever, but the truth is we are not. And I agree that, if we don't plan, then maybe someone else will plan for us if we are thinking about ourselves. And, we should hope to get what we want as we leave this earth. And, so our family can remember us the way we want to be remembered. And I think that's a piece of what you do, Randi. I'm very interested in today's trends regarding interfaith and multicultural world. Many of us, if not all of us, have interfaith, marriage and, many different cultures to think about when we discuss this. So I would love for you to talk a little bit about how your company puts it out there and works with families where that is a need for them.
So we are primarily known as a Jewish funeral home, hence the name Goldstein's Rosenberg. But in all honesty, we're a funeral home first and foremost. We will service anybody, any race, any creed, any religion, really doesn't matter. People that are in interfaith relationships tend to, like, if the non-Jewish person dies in the relationship, they tend to call a non-Jewish funeral home and vice versa. So what we've been trying to teach the public is we can handle both sides. Not a problem. There's really no such thing as an interfaith funeral per se. We're just dealing with interfaith families and how to handle it. Because usually, like, the interfaith couples that have come in or a spouse has come in, they usually want to honor their loved one's traditions. So they'll go with whatever their religion was when they die. So we've done a lot of teaching to the non-Jewish spouse what entails in a Jewish funeral, and they can take it as religious as they want to, as non-religious. We'll do whatever. But we can handle any side of it. It doesn't just have to be a Jewish death. We've done plenty of Catholic funerals, Christian funerals. We've done some Buddhist funerals for Asian people. We've done Indian funerals. Whatever it is, we can do it, and if we don't know how to do it, we will figure it out for you. But the idea is that you don't need 2 or 3 different funeral homes to handle your family. You could just go to one funeral home, and that's what we want the public to know, that we're here to serve anyone and everyone.
So that leads me to a question about the purchasing decision of these services, right? Sometimes it's last minute, it's very stressful. Families are dealing with grief and everything associated with that. And if they're doing pre-planning and they're dealing with that decision earlier, what are the people looking for? Is it specifically like related to the religion? Is it specifically related to services? Is it something about the environment? Like what are people evaluating in this decision?
And we'll get that answer after a brief word from our commercial sponsors.
Nassau is always working harder to be your carrier of choice. We offer insurance products that can help you meet your retirement goals, such as protecting your savings, securing lifetime income, or paying for healthcare costs. We're dedicated to providing best-in-class service and are keeping things simple, and we'll have your back. We have around 400,000 policyholders and contract holders and have been doing this for a long time, 170 years, but we remain humble enough to always try to improve. For more information, visit nfg.com. Nassau insurance products are issued by Nassau Life and Annuity Company of Hartford, Connecticut, Nassau Life Insurance Company, East Greenbush, New York, or Nassau Life Insurance Company of Kansas, Overland Park, Kansas. Subsidiaries of Nassau Financial Group. Products are not available in all areas. Policyholder counts are for all Nassau companies as of September 30th, 2022, and are subject to change.
All of the above. Really depends on the family. You get families that are, weddings and funerals is when people become religious. So if you weren't religious during a funeral, you can become very religious. You want to follow your religion's traditions to a T. Other people are very focused on the price component. They only have so much to spend. How much this is going to cost me? Other people just don't find the importance in the celebration of someone's life and just want to get it over with. We've run across every possible scenario that you can have. And until you start talking to the family that you're dealing with, you really don't know what direction they're going in. So my biggest thing is, the biggest skill I think any funeral director or any person can have in life is listening. Hear what they're saying. Don't just answer to hear yourself answer. Actually listen to what they're saying, think about it for a second, and then give them the response. The other thing is when it comes to making arrangements at need when someone's suicide versus pre-need prior to someone dying, at need is very difficult. It's very emotional. I mean, if you're Jewish, you do things on a quicker time frame. You're buried within 24 to 48 hours. But the emotional component is really high. It's really hard to make all those decisions. And if the family's not of the ultra-Orthodox, I usually say, why don't we set up an appointment to come in tomorrow? Give yourself time to at least even digest what just happened before you dive into the next step. Pre-arrangement is difficult because you don't want to talk about your own death, and most people are coming in to do their own pre-arrangements, but it's also a gift to your family because now you got your wishes down. And your family literally just picks up the phone at the time of death and said, my mother died and she has a pre-arrangement with you. And then we go through what we have to go through, and they're like, I am so thankful my parents did this because I don't think I could have handled it. So it's a gift to your family, but not everyone gets the chance to do that. And we'll walk you through at need, and we'll give you as much time as you need to figure out how to handle it.
So I could just jump in with a follow-up question. What are those decisions? To me, someone dies, you select a funeral service and bury the person. What am I missing, right? I haven't gone through this, thankfully.
Well, decisions. Where do you want to have the service? Do you want it in our facility? Do you want it out of a church or a synagogue? Do you want it out of all at the cemetery? Do you want to use the cemetery chapel if the cemetery has a chapel? So there's decisions. How do you want the body prepared? What do you want your loved one dressed in? Do you want limousines or not? Are you sitting Siva for a Jewish, or are you going somewhere afterwards? Do you want contributions made for your loved one? Do you want newspaper notices? What do you want to put in the newspaper? The more you put in, the more expensive it is. There's a lot. It's literally, what day do you want the service? All right, well, if you want it this day, the only times our chapel's available are these times. Then you have to, what rabbi or what clergy do you want to officiate? There's a lot of decisions. Plus, on top of that, you have to remember to bring in the decedent's vital statistical information, including and not limited to their social security numbers, so we can fill out a death certificate and file that for you. It's a lot. You got to remember to bring in the clothing. You got to remember, it's a lot more than saying, all right, just stick them in a casket and put them in the ground. And the biggest decision, prior to them is, do you own cemetery ground? Do you want, like I said earlier, are we looking to do a burial or cremation as a disposition? And if you don't own cemetery ground and you want a burial, well, what cemetery are you looking at? Because the cemeteries can dictate what we can do and what we can't do, depending on their requirements. So there's a lot of coordinating, a lot of picking and choosing, and literally we take you by the hand and go step by step.
So I totally agree with you, Randy. My father-in-law has been deceased for many years. And, at the time, I guess I didn't recognize it. I was very young. He had everything spelled out, everything, where he was going to be, which funeral home, limousines, the after party, I'll call it, because it was a celebration of his life. And I love that you said, it really is a gift, because we had everything laid out. Like, his dad had a budget too. He was very funny. He was a really interesting man. And, that helped my husband quite a bit, because his mother had been deceased for quite a few years. She died, quite young from cancer. So it was just his dad, he and his dad and his brother. And so it helped a lot with grief, because you're so overwhelmed. You're never ready. He died suddenly. He literally died suddenly. My husband was on the phone with him, and they were having a conversation. Kind of an odd story to share, but I'm sharing it because when I tell people, they're like, no, that really happened. So that said, can you talk a little bit about how you and your company delivers grief counseling do you? Like, what is your role with that? Because obviously, this is such a big part of the process.
So officially, we are not grief counselors. We don't have degrees in psychology or anything like that. None of us are therapists, so we should probably have one on staff for other reasons, but we don't. We counsel families as best we can. And like I said earlier, the biggest tool in that is listening to what they are saying and hearing them. Because sometimes they just want to vent about the hospital, the hospice, the whatever, whatever it is. The other thing is that we offer, through a variety of different ways, aftercare. And by that I mean we send out support letters, we send out a packet that has up-to-date support groups in our area. We have a company now that calls a family about a month out after the service to see how they're doing, see if they need help. We also, on our website, have a list of different groups and stuff. And we also, use our info at Goldstein's funeral home, or goldsteinsfuneral.com, that people can contact us and say, we really need help, or we're not sure how to handle this, and we will respond and we reach out. I mean, here at Goldstein's Rosenberg, our biggest concern is treating your loved one with the most utmost respect and dignity, but also making sure that you get through it. We're here for you. Contact our families after the service. We try and follow up with them a couple times a year. We just like to check in, and we are always here no matter what, even if you just need to talk. We'll listen. It's, again, we're not therapists, but we deal with this on a daily basis. I think we have a better insight than most people. And what the public needs to realize is, yes, there's stages of grief, but there's no time limit. And those stages are blurred. And, depending on when you lose someone, I don't care their age, depending on your relationship with that person, that affects how you deal with it. I have 2 daughters, and they lost their dad. It'll be 4 years in May. And they each reacted very differently. My oldest daughter really struggled in the beginning, and my oldest daughter I didn't expect to struggle at all, but she did. My younger daughter took about a year and a half before it hit. So again, and every day, there could be things that make them sad or make them happy because they remember him, whatever. That's my point. Like, there is no time limit. I think one thing that people who are going through the grieving process need to realize is that it's not a bad thing to talk about your loved one. If it makes people uncomfortable, then that's their problem. If you need to talk about them, talk about them. And on the other side of the coin, if you don't want to talk about them, just tell someone. I'm not in the mood to talk. You don't have to. So, and your real friends and people who get it will always be there for you. Unfortunately, this divorce, you find out who your real friends are very quickly and who really gets what you're going through. Because, people will say, like, oh, they've been widowed for a year, they should get over it. Well, you know what? I don't want to get over it. Or I do want to or I was over it 5 minutes ago, and they're like, well, that's wrong. Well, that's their choice. Like, who are you to judge what they're feeling? So I think that's a huge thing. That and the fact that, funerals in general have changed. Like you said, Mary, it's a life celebration. It is. They used to be, back when I was a kid, very cookie cutter. 20 minutes in chapel, 15 minutes at the cemetery, and boom, we're done. Now people want music. They want video montages. They want speakers, family members to get up and speak. That was unheard of when I was young. So there's another thing, like, funerals have really evolved into something more than just all right, let's get them in the ground and go have a drink,
Yeah, I mean, I love that you just shared that, because actually, as I was thinking about our podcast today, I was thinking about myself and what I would want to do. And when you said music, I was like, yeah, there's got to be music, and I want people to have a really good time. And I want them to say something about me. I don't really even care what it is. Like, I want people to share, some memory, or whether it's silly or maybe not so silly. So I love that you brought that up, because I do agree with you. Like, years ago, and we're dating ourselves a little bit, but I don't think people did that. They didn't. I mean, at least that's what I remember too. So, but Joseph, I didn't want to cut you off. I just wanted to kind of close that loop.
No, it's all
It's
good.
very traditional back in the day, and it's become very non-traditional now. And it really depends on the family, depends on how they feel, what they want. Like, I break the ice sometimes with families, and I'll say, you need clothing for your loved one when they die. Like suit, dress. I'm like, be whatever you want. Like, and it's when I was a kid, it was men were always in suits. Women were, for whatever reason, putting like the gown they wore to the wedding. Like, I never got that. Like, suit me now if you're doing that to me. So I always joke with families, like, I want to go in black tank top, jeans or shorts, my slides. My kids better put my Philadelphia Flyers jersey I'm a huge hockey fan, in my casket. And quite frankly, I know exactly where I'm going. It's going to be hot. Don't even mess with me. Like, but it breaks the ice with people because, they're like, well, Dad didn't have a suit. Well, what did he normally wear? They're like, sweats and an Eagles jersey. And I'm like, or Eagles sweatshirt. I'm like, bring it in. That's that. Like, why make them into something they're not? So that's become like a big thing too. Like, it's not as I said before, the cookie cutter funerals have gone to the side. Like, they don't really exist as much anymore. And it's kind of makes it a little harder for us for scheduling, but it's kind of nice to see. And music has become a huge part of services. And another thing people do, rather than have all the speakers stand up, sometimes they'll have a book and I ask people to like write a memory in it, which is really nice too, because that way you can keep it, So another option.
So Mary, you better do your pre-planning if you have those big dreams. Make sure your family knows what you want.
You're absolutely right.
Get that on that list.
That's right.
So it sounds like there's a lot of decisions, as you were talking about earlier. Obviously, lots of different personal choices, religious choices. Is that where the funeral director comes into play? Kind of walk you through that, and if that's the case, are there like checklists or some sort of quote unquote cheat sheets that people can use to kind of start thinking about these things?
Now an ad from one of our sponsors. Remember when you could trust the news? Well, then check out Walter. Walter is the free, no-nonsense newsletter for grown-ups that comes to your inbox 3 times a week. From current trends, aging in place, travel, retirement, and everything in between, including a dash of pop culture trivia and throwbacks, Walter is a great way to start your mornings and to stay informed. Oh, and did we mention that it's free? Check us out at thisiswalter.com. Get smart. Get Walter.
Sounds like more than I would have thought that was involved. Like, okay, person passes away. Like you said earlier, stick them in a box, put them on the ground, done. But clearly that's not the case.
We personally have checklists and stuff. We can send someone what's called a vital statistical sheet so they know the information they need for death certificate. We can send them like what you need to think about. Like, we have pre-planning pamphlets and stuff. We'll send them out. They're also on our website. I think there's no like formula for it, but we're called funeral directors. Think about those 2 words. We are here to direct you on how to plan a funeral, whether it be for someone who's still living or whether it be for someone who's already passed away. You're not expected to know what to do. That's our job, to get you through it. Just like if you go to a surgeon, you're not expected to know how he's doing the surgery. That's his job or her job. So I think for a long time, directing funerals has kind of gotten away from people, where now we're kind of like, you know what, they really don't know what they're doing, and that's our job. Our job is to direct you and educate you. And then on the next one, when you call us, it's a little bit easier for you because you learned a lot. And I always say this to people, never, ever be afraid to ask a question or stop us and say, I don't understand. Why do I need that? That's what we're here for. And if you don't ask the question, you're not going to learn. I mean, I'm a huge question asker. Like, ask anyone here. They'll be like, I'm annoying, but that's how I learn. So that's just the way, But ask the questions, write a list down, bring it in with you, take that time. There's no time limit on an arrangement. So if you need to sit with us for 2 hours, we'll sit with you for 2 hours. It is what it is.
I love that you put the human so much, at the beginning and at the middle and the end. And it's, I love your style. I love hearing about how you approach, this important and what can be very, very sad time. And, grief can take a lot of twists and turns, depending on what took place, whether it was sudden or expected, or, the relationships that we have with families, because we know those are complicated. So, Randi, as we kind of get to the end of our recording today, can you share a few tips that individuals may want to hear, whether they're pre-planning, or, I'll say this because I always say this, or God forbid it happens, soon and they're not expecting it. So are there a couple of tips that you can share before I ask you my favorite final question?
Tips would be, I'm a very strong believer in writing things down so you don't forget. So make a list. Take your time, make a list. Even if you think it's a mundane question, point, whatever, write it down and, ask us, present it to us, whatever. The other thing is, I always tell families this, breathe. Take a minute, breathe. Just collect yourself, collect your thoughts, give yourself some time. We'll get you through this. Just unfortunately, pre-planning, you can say you're going to need this, or, call us, we can send you stuff ahead. At need, sudden, there's no tips. I mean, we just have to be there for them. I mean, there's nothing worse than a funeral there's nothing worse than a parent has to bury a child. Let me put it that way. And it doesn't matter how old that child is. Obviously, it's tragic when they're cut down young. But, I've dealt with 80-year-old parents who've lost a 60-year-old child. It's awful. And stuff like that, or a sudden tragic accident or something, there is no, again, just let them go through it and be there. That's a tip as a funeral director, I can say. And, I realize that their emotions are going to be all over. What I don't think people realize that, those in grief, anger is a big proponent of grief. And people lash out at you, even though they're not really angry at you. So you really have to realize that it's not directed at you. They're just venting. So, that's a huge factor too.
Yeah. No, I love that you brought that up, the word anger, just because I think that's just realistic. So I think, I appreciate you sharing that. So our final question before Joseph kind of closes this out is really, so you could do anything at all. Why do you wake up every day and do what you do, Randi? What's your why?
I have no idea. So crazy. No. I came into the business not thinking that I was going to work here forever. I did it while I was in college. I watched what my family did, and I got to say, being able to help people is a really great feeling. And even though we're planning funerals every day, every family's different. So it's not mundane. You deal with a lot of different stuff. And I have to honestly say, working with my family, as much as it can be difficult, it's also really great because some of my cousins that I work with, if it wasn't for the business, we wouldn't know each other. Because it was my grandfather and my great uncle that started the business. So my great uncle side of the family, I really wouldn't know, as the branches get bigger, so it's kind of cool. I have two cousins that are like brothers to me, but if it wasn't for the business, I don't think we ever would have known each other. So it's really, and a cousin who's like a big sister to me that, again, it wasn't for here, they were the other side of the family. So like in passing at funerals, whatever, but not really get to know them. So that's a really cool thing. But basically, I really enjoy being able to get someone through a rough period.
Well, it's a tough job, but I guess someone has to do it, as they say. You obviously have created life for your family through a business that deals with death. So there's something poetic about that, I guess. What's the best way for someone to get in touch with you, to get some of your forms, to learn more about how to deal with this?
The best way to get in touch with us is a couple different ways. Our phone number is 215-927-5800. The name of the funeral home, again, is Goldstein's Rosenberg's Funeral Directors, Inc. We are also on Facebook, and we have a website, Goldstein's with an S, funeral.com. You can always message us through, email us through there. You can message us through Facebook. We are on Instagram. I'm not a big Instagram user, so I'm not quite sure if you can message on Instagram, but and we answer our phones 24/7. We do have an answering service, but if it's a death call, they get one of us right away, and we are on call. We are open 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We never close. And quite frankly, even if you're not in this area but you have questions, don't hesitate to call us. We'll still answer them. We'll guide you even if we're not the funeral director. We'll be there to help you.
Well, I appreciate all that information. We'll make sure to put that in the show notes. I will have to check out an Instagram account from a funeral director's website. I'm curious what you're posting, but appreciate your time today. Thanks for your insights and sharing your career with us. Mary, it's been a pleasure. Until next time, thank you all for listening, and tune in again next week for another episode of the Prime Life Podcast.
Remember to subscribe to the Prime Life Podcast anywhere you find podcasts. You can find all of our episodes, contact information, and more on our website, primelifepodcast.com. Stay connected with us. Follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.